Well, it's hot in here. It's truly an honor for me to be really starting the program. Truly it is. And the topic that I'm going to discuss with you today is something which is very close to my heart. And I don't know if you were aware that I'm actually an anti-aging physician. And I'm, in fact, one of the directors of the British Anti-Aging Society. So it's my involvement in that sphere of work that I'd like to share with you some of the secrets that we anti-aging doctors have come to find and know about over the years. Some of it you will know and probably you don't realize you know, but I'd like to emphasize some of those key points. But I thought I would commence by just sharing with you a few little anecdotes on what aging is. And you can prefix these that I'm about to read to you with when you know you are getting old when. Okay? So, let's start. You know you are getting old when your little black book only contains names ending MD. You know you're getting old when your secrets are safe with your friends because they can't remember them either. You find yourself beginning to like accordion music. You know you're getting old when at the breakfast table you hear snap, crackle, and pop and you're not eating breakfast cereal. You know you're getting old when your wild oats turn to prunes and all bran. And how about this one? I'll finish with this. You know you're getting old when your joints are more accurate than the National Weather Service. So, all of those things are amusing, but actually, think about what we were saying. Age is associated with things, degenerative changes which we don't like. But is that necessary? Do we have to degenerate as we get older? Do we have to get sick? Okay, let's explore this topic together. We'll start with this. What is aging? What is it? This is a fairly good definition. Aging in mammals is characterized by senescence, a decline in physiological function resulting from cumulative damage to tissues. So that's additive damage with time that overwhelms the body's natural ability to repair them. Well, that's a good description. There are many definitions of aging. This, I think, is a good one. So as we age, the ability to repair slows down. And in fact, it's outstripped by the degenerative change, right? When we're young, we're more elastic. Our collagen is more elastic. But everything gets less elastic as we get older, doesn't it? Okay, good definition. All right. Let's look at what we know as anti-aging physicians causes aging. And this is by no means an exhaustive list, but these are some of the key things that we doctors now know contribute to the aging process. So, we have free radical stress or oxidative stress, some of you may know it as, inflammation, glycation. What is that? That is the process that makes our proteins more sticky as we get age. Now, if proteins get sticky, what does that mean? It means they don't function as well, whether they're structural proteins in our skin or enzymes that govern our metabolic process. If they get stickier, they don't work as well. So glycation is this stickiness of proteins that happens as we get older. Then we have mitochondrial impairment. They're the powerhouses inside the cells. It's like the charge in the battery gets less as we get older. So mitochondrial ability to produce energy diminishes with age. Hormonal decline. Well, that in particular is a fascination to me. Hormones and how they impact on aging. I won't be saying very much about that today. It's a whole world in its own right. But at some other time, maybe I'll talk about that. And of course, gene dysregulation. Maybe not the one at the top of the list, but our genes not functioning as well as they should do. to control cell behavior. So these are some of the processes that we know happen and contribute to the aging process. And I want you to just notice those key headings, given what we're about to talk about. All right, so we're familiar with some of the changes that happen externally as we age. And the slide shows some of them. You know, we see these structural changes where we lose support, right? In our abdomens, in our skin, and of course, as you see there in the leg. So the aging changes on the surface are a little bit more obvious than the changes that occur inside. But let me tell you that those same degenerative changes are occurring inside of us as we age. So this loss of structure and loss of function happen as we age. Now, is there anything that we can do about it? And this is the thing that has challenged anti-aging physicians for many, many years. And this is a major challenge for many reasons. And firstly, because if you look at this slide, it shows that by the year 2050, the number of people over the age of 60 will be 5 times what it was. So in other words, we're getting older, but the problem is, with that age, we are not getting disease-free. In other words, the aging is accompanied with disease process. So we're getting older, but we're carrying disease process into that old age. Now, what can we do about that? Not quite sure where the right place is to do this. There we go. Okay. So this is just more or less reinforcing what I just said. So you see here with brain degeneration that as we age, dementia and brain degenerative disease becomes more common. And by the year 2040, the number of cases of dementia will have doubled to an incredible 144 billion. That's extraordinary when you think about that. So aging is associated with degeneration. Next, here's one of the problems that challenges us as doctors. And this, again, is referring to brain degeneration, Alzheimer's disease. The problem is, by the time we detect it, you already have it, and you've probably already had it for 10 years. It's similar to the scenario for breast cancer, ladies. By the time most cancers are big enough to detect in the breast, you've probably had that growing for 10 years. Similar story with Alzheimer's and brain degeneration. By the time we're able to detect it by measurements, it's already been progressing. In other words, we're not detecting it soon enough. Now, I can make that same argument for virtually every disease process that we know in medicine. We're failing to detect the disease early enough to make a big difference to the outcome. So here we see it for Alzheimer's disease, and this thing called mild cognitive impairment. Everybody has that, don't we? You have days, don't you, when you forget your keys and your brain doesn't work very well. That's mild cognitive impairment. But when does that become the first sign of dementia and Alzheimer's? And how do we measure it? It's a real challenge. All right, so here we have 2 scenarios. The top one is normal aging, and what you see is that we have this disease process occurring as we age. But look at the bottom section. Optimal longevity or optimal aging really should be where we live a long life but without disease process. Which of us do not want that? That we have a long life free of disease? Put your hand up if you don't want that. Of course not. So this is the thing that challenges anti-aging physicians. How do we achieve this? How do we achieve health as we age? And how do we not degenerate? So that's truly what anti-aging is about. Most people think anti-aging is just to do with the way you look, that you have no wrinkles, that you look good on the outside. But any anti-aging doctor who's worth his salt is really looking at how do I stem the processes that cause aging and that cause degeneration. Now look at this next slide because it's really fascinating. I don't know if you can see the detail of this, but it doesn't matter. What this is showing you is that some of the processes, and I think I will use my laser for this actually. So some of the processes, let's see how this works. Can you see that? No, you can't. Yes, you can. There you go. So here are some of the processes that cause aging, that contribute to aging. Inflammation, oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction. It's the same list that I showed you before. But I want you to follow this timeline. And you notice that here we have age-related disease. And what are they? Alzheimer's, heart disease, cancer, etc. Osteoporosis, okay, Parkinson's. So they're all the chronic disease, degenerative diseases that we're familiar with. But the point is, folks, look here. These are the processes that not only cause disease, but contribute to aging. So here's the fascinating thing. The processes that cause disease are exactly the same processes that cause aging. The problem is, folks, is that as doctors, we are not measuring these. We don't measure inflammation, generally speaking. We don't measure oxidative stress, and we don't measure mitochondrial dysfunction. Well, if we're not measuring those processes, how can we stop the processes occurring in the first place? How can we stop the degeneration if we're not measuring early enough the processes that lead to it? You follow me? So this is why anti-aging doctors, in my opinion, are ahead of the game, because these are doctors who are looking to stem the processes of aging, and guess what? If you do that, you stem the processes that cause disease as well. It's the same thing, folks. It's the same thing. All right, let's make this a bit more interesting. And really, that's just summarizing where I think we're at with medicine and the difference between preventative medicine and disease-related medicine. So on the right, this is where conventional medicine sits. We very much are trying to fix a disease once we discover it. We detect it too late, and then we try to fix it. It's a disease model paradigm. But prevention and anti-aging medicine, the notion is preventing disease, detecting processes that lead to disease early and that lead to aging, and doing something about those processes before they cause the degeneration. Do you follow? So that's true anti-aging medicine, and it's true preventative medicine. All right? So, some of you will have seen this slide before, but it's such a critical slide, I thought I'd bring it up again. And it's very complex, but don't worry. The key things that you want to note on that is that we talk about oxidative stress and free radical stress a lot. And we talk about inflammation a lot in degeneration and aging. But what this slide shows is that as far as the body is concerned, inflammation and oxidative stress cannot be separated. They're very much linked within the cells. In other words, if you have inflammation, it leads to oxidative stress. If you have oxidative stress, it leads to inflammation. But with conventional doctors, what we do is we try to focus on individual things to fix them. As far as our bodies are concerned, a lot of these processes that cause aging and degeneration are linked together. So the beauty about that is that if you can tackle one, you can tackle, it has a cascade effect. Do you follow me? Those processes are linked. So, and they're not separated. So it's this oxy-inflammation. It's a combination of things. And look at the disease processes that are caused by a combination of oxidative stress and inflammation. We have cancer, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's disease, pulmonary disease, arthritis, autoimmune disease, neurological disease. All of the things that are common in Western society. I haven't quite got the hang of this clicker yet, have I? All right, here we go. Look at what happens, folks, when we are able to reduce this silent inflammation. Loss of excess body fat. So if we stop this inflammation or lower it, we lose fat. We reduce our risk of heart disease and diabetes. We reduce the risk of other insulin-related illness and metabolic disturbance. And we increase lifespan. Marvelous. So the fact that we don't measure this silent inflammation in modern medicine, we don't test it routinely, is a big oversight. I think you can see that, because if we measured it, and we measured it in everybody, and we found it was there, maybe we could do something about it sooner. Well, the good news is that we can. And we're going to sort of step over into the realm of what we can do about it. This is something that Jamie Oliver said. It's so true. He made this statement. He said, homicide is 0.8% of deaths. Diet-related disease is over 60%, but no one talks about it. And guess what? As a physician and studying 5 years at medical school, no one really taught me about how nutrition impacts on disease. Now, you would have thought that as a doctor, seeing patients, wanting to know how to advise people who came to see me about how they could stay healthy, you would have thought doctors should know this, right? But you know, I didn't have not 1 hour of nutritional medicine, not one. And I believe nothing much has changed, by the way, because often I have medical students sit with me, or young doctors, and I ask them, how much of your training has been to do with how you can wield nutrition to prevent disease? And they say the same thing. Haven't had anything. So therein lies a problem. If that's true, then doctors definitely should be trained in nutritional medicine so that they can make this impact and educate people what they can do. Don't worry. I'm here to put that right this morning, or this afternoon, I should say. Okay, this is interesting, folks, because if we start with what is one thing that we can do to lengthen our lives and to age better, it's not what you think. It's not actually what you're putting in, it's what you're not putting in. One of the major things that is proven in science to extend life in many species, guess what it is? Actually restricting calories. Calorie restriction is known to be anti-aging and to increase longevity. So, first rule of talking about nutrition and aging is, folks, don't eat so much. Seriously, if we want to age better, don't eat so much. This notion of calorie restriction is actually vital, not only to aging, but to health. Look at this. Oh, actually, let me stay on this slide for a minute. Look at that bottom left graph. In fact, let me use this pointer rather than trying to point to it with my finger. That's a bit silly, isn't it, really? So here we go. So here you go. Here we have a calorie-restricted animal, and here just feeding normally. And what you're meant to see there is that there's an extension of life. Okay, so let's look at the next slide, because it shows some of the things when I can. Here we go. These are some of the things we know calorie restriction does. So if we reduce calories by 30 to 40% of daily intake, it extends lifespan in a wide spectrum of organisms as the only regime known to lengthen the lifespan of mammals. Here's some of the things. It alters gene expression for metabolic enzymes. In other words, stokes up the energy production in the cells. One of the things that diminishes as we age. It reduces these things called AGEs. Now that stands for advanced glycosylated end products. But let's call them AGEs for short. They're the sticky proteins that I spoke about earlier that are more common as we age. So what happens? Calorie restriction reduces these. It also is neuroprotective, meaning it protects our brain and our nervous system, and it improves detoxification and increases glutathione, which is one of our major intracellular antioxidant systems, all achieved just by not eating so much. You didn't think I was going to say that today, did you? Nutrition and aging, first rule, don't eat so much. Next, Here's just showing you more of the same thing. So here you see, these monkeys are the same age, by the way. This one has been calorie restricted, and that one hasn't. But also, if you look on this slide, not only do they live longer, but they have less chronic disease, less cancers, less cardiovascular problems, less metabolic problems. So we know it. Anti-aging doctors know this. Conventional medicine hasn't caught up with it, but it's one of the simple things that we can do to slow the aging process. Okay, let's skip on. Now this is where it gets more interesting, folks. Really, it does. Because we have known for some time. In fact, in the whole world of anti-aging medicine, there's a lot of interest in these compounds called polyphenols. Yeah? I don't know, is it on the slide there? You can't really see it in that diagrammatic representation. But this slide is about polyphenols, which are these ring-shaped compounds that are found in a broad range of fruit and vegetables, and especially dark fruit and veg like the berries. Okay? These polyphenols are really interesting anti-aging physicians. And this is why. This is one of the reasons why, I should say. Because what they do is they stimulate the same anti-aging mechanisms inside the cells that calorie restriction does. In other words, when we eat these polyphenols and take enough of them in, they stimulate the same defense anti-aging mechanisms that calorie restriction stimulates. Isn't that fascinating? Yes or no? I find that absolutely fascinating, and how they do that. So here's an example of how nutrition can mimic not eating so much. This I put in really just to illustrate a point about how nutrition can be wielded therapeutically. This is talking about age-related macular degeneration. What you see there on the right-hand side is what that looks like to someone who has it. They lose their central vision. And it happens as we age. The bottom graph shows the occurrence of this increases as we age. Now, the next slide shows you that a simple supplement that contains, it's called AREDS, that contains a combination of carotenoids and vitamin C, is actually able to slow the occurrence of age-related macular degeneration. So what is the point? The point is that we're able to impact on a disease, an aging disease process, by putting the right nutrients in. Do you follow me? So can nutrition interrupt a disease process? Absolutely it can. Can it interrupt an aging process? Absolutely, because the two things I've already told you are the same mechanisms that produce both. I don't know if this is counting down or counting up. Let me just watch it for a minute. Oh, it's counting down. Okay. So polyphenols, folks. Let's talk a bit about polyphenols. I don't even know how long I've got left. It says 25 minutes. Does that mean I've got 25 minutes left? Or anybody know? Yeah? Anyway, I'll keep talking. 24 minutes now. Let's stick to subject. Right, so polyphenols, that's what they look like. They're these ring structures linked together, found in a broad range of fruits and vegetables, especially berries. It's difficult to avoid them unless you don't eat enough fruit and veg, or you don't take Juice Plus. Most people are managing to do it, because if you look at the intake of polyphenols over time, what you can see is that over the ages, the amount of polyphenols and vitamin C that people are actually taking in has reduced. Now, the consequence of doing that, I think you're beginning to see, if we take in these nutrients which have these major impacts on our cells, on our cell function, we can expect only degenerative change. So one of the simple things that we can do is to change this. Well, this is a study published by a good friend of mine, Giovanni Scapanini, and he's actually one of the leading anti-aging physicians, but it just shows you the mindset of a typical anti-aging doctor. Look at the study that he's doing. I know this sounds very technical, but I will explain what this is in a minute. modulation of NRF2 by food polyphenols, a nutritional neuroprotective strategy for cognitive and neurodegenerative disorders. So he's looking at the impact of polyphenols on brain degeneration. And actually, the interesting thing, come on, it's part of the story. I'm going to come back to what this NRF2 is in a minute. This is the naked mole rat. And it's a funny-looking creature, isn't it? Right? But this naked mole rat fascinates anti-aging physicians. Do you know why? Because it is the longest living rodent. Normal rats live 2 to 3 years. But this naked mole rat lives, on average, 31 years. 31 years. And anti-aging scientists have been studying this creature to try and see what is it that makes this curious creature live so long. And not only does it live so long, but it rarely gets cancer and it rarely gets any heart disease, which, by the way, normal rats do. So there must be a connection, we think, between the... And what we find, to cut a long story short, what the scientists have found is that in this rat, this particular molecule, this pathway called NRF2, is very active, is upregulated. So we think that the reason it lives so long and the reason it stays disease-free is because that NRF2 pathway is stimulated or is very active in these creatures. Now, stick with me for a minute, because this slide shows you what NRF2 does. It doesn't matter if you don't remember that name, by the way. This is just to illustrate a point. This is going on inside of you without you even bothering to think about it or not. It happens in your cells every day. This NRF2, this is what it does. If you stimulate it, it actually causes your body's defense mechanisms to go into hyperdrive. In other words, your own cell's antioxidant systems, your own cell protective systems are stimulated by this NRF2. Now, if we can stimulate NRF2, that would be a good thing, wouldn't it not? Yeah, given what we now know. How do we stimulate NRF2? Well, look at this, folks. Guess what? Polyphenols, these same compounds, look at what they do. Not only do they, look, NRF2, they stimulate NRF2 activity inside our cells. They, excuse me, they also stimulate this pathway, which is anti-inflammatory. They stimulate this pathway, which is the metabolic, anti-aging pathway. We could go on, but there's several points to make about this slide. First, polyphenols stimulate this NRF2 mechanism, cell defense pathway that protects our cells. Secondly, polyphenols don't work by one mechanism of action. Multiple mechanisms of action to achieve several objectives at the same time. You're very quiet out there. Are you following me? Excellent. Okay, that's all I'm worried about. All right, I think I've made my point. Next. This is saying the same thing. Polyphenols reduce inflammation and oxidative stress. I paused for a minute because this was in white when I sent it through, but it sort of stumped me there for a minute. I wondered what slide it was. Okay, this was published at the beginning of 2015. Somebody decided to study the amount of polyphenols in Juice Plus. And what came out of that was quite remarkable. That actually in the six Juice Plus capsules that you take, there are 600 milligrams of polyphenolic compounds. Now that is amazing, folks, because most cultures, most societies, that is at least half of the daily intake of polyphenols. assuming that they eat a broad range of fruit and veg. And 6 capsules of Juice Plus contain 600 milligrams of these polyphenols that I've been hyping on about so far, that have all these positive effects. And of note, by the way, I'll tell you anyway, maybe I shouldn't, but the berry blend contains twice as many as either of the other two, which is why I take 4 of the berry blend to Vineyard every day. I'll share that little secret with you. So next, isn't that amazing? Berry polyphenols, what they do, you've got the point, right? I don't need to carry on talking to you about polyphenols. That's what they do. They're fascinating. They're intriguing the world of anti-aging medicine because of all of those things that I've shared with you already. Good. All right. Let's go back to Okinawa for a second. And you will have heard me mention this before. They have the highest number of centenarians on the planet, highest number of people living to 100. And of course, they have been the subject of guess who? Anti-aging scientists and doctors, because we're interested to know what is it that they do that makes them live so long. And not only do they live long, but I'll show you a slide in a minute, but they also have less disease. This is showing the occurrence or prevalence of dementia, comparing the Okinawans, which are the bottom yellow graph, compared to the red, which is Japan, and above that, the USA. And what you see is that there is less brain degeneration in these long-living Okinawan people. And this is a fascinating slide. I pinched it from a study on these people. I'll need my pointer again, I think. Not enough hands, you see. Okay, so let me just show you this. Because here we have heart disease. The black columns are Okinawa. The white is Japan. And the sort of shaded gray is US. Now, what do you see? What you notice is that heart disease is significantly less in men and women. In Okinawa, you notice that colon cancer is less, prostate cancer is less, and breast cancer is less. So not only do they live longer, but they also have less of the diseases that are killing us Westerners. Why might that be the case, do you think? Well, it's been studied. Now, this particularly fascinates me. And it was just a comment, a graph in a study that there wasn't much commentary on. But it fascinates me because what it's looking at is a hormone called DHEA. How many of you have heard of DHEA? Put your hand up. A few. How many of you are taking DHEA? Put your hand up. 1. No. Put your hands up, don't be shy. About half a dozen of you that I can see. Okay, well, DHEA is a hormone. It's an anabolic hormone. A lot of anti-aging physicians use it to support people's hormones. Because guess what? As we age, our hormones decrease. Now, this is what this slide is showing. If you look at the decline in DHEA in someone in the USA here, that black line, look at the decline in this hormone in the Okinawans. That's absolutely fascinating because they don't take DHEA. Okinawans don't take DHEA, but something they do is slowing the decline, this age-related decline, in this hormone. So let's cut to the quick. What do they do? Here's what we think they do, folks, that makes the difference. If you look at the Okinawan diet, it is low calorie density. Look at the pyramid and what's at the bottom. You see that? What's at the bottom? Yes, exactly. The base is fruit and veg. But they have low calorie density, high nutrient density. They have a diet rich in these polyphenol compounds that we've been talking about. It has low glycemic index. In other words, not so much sugar, not so much white carbohydrate, but colored carbohydrates. And also their diet is anti-inflammatory. It's anti-inflammatory because they don't eat so much. See, CR means calorie restriction. Polyphenol rich and rich in omega-3 fatty acids. So what we've learned from the Okinawans is that that is the diet which slows aging. Stunned silence. These are some of the ingredients of their diet. They eat a lot of curcumin as well, which is a fascinating spice. A lot of studies on it showing marvelous effects on not just disease, but aging process. These colored vegetables as well, and diet rich in polyphenols. Now, I've got 12 minutes. Okay, that's fine. This is, remember I showed you on that first slide, one of the processes that happens as we age is this thing called glycation. Remember, it's where proteins get sticky. Well, this is an example of sticky proteins. This is cataract. It gets more common as we age, and that's what it looks like. It looks like it's a misting over so you can't see through. No light goes through to the retina. On the right side, what that shows you is if you cut through a lens structure, it's these layers of protein which look like a blind. In fact, what a cataract really is those proteins in the blind sticking together so that they don't open to let light through. So that is the process that happens with cataract. It's an age-related process caused by proteins getting stickier as we age. This process of glycation. And this is, again, part of the aging process. What it shows you is this glycation process. Look at the bottom, folks. Atherosclerosis. We think it's linked to heart disease, osteoporosis, cognitive impairment, ovarian aging, and skin aging. So the sticky protein process is linked to a lot of disease process and is linked to aging. This is a fascinating, some clever scientists in Holland have come up with a device that is able to measure these sticky proteins, these ages in the forearm by this luminescent method. Very clever. Why is it important? Because if you can measure a process, an aging process, and do something about it, that's likely to impact not just on aging, but on disease, given what we said. So that's very exciting. I'm going to get one of those for my clinic. That's hot off the press. Okay, here's the other thing. 12 weeks after people taking a berry extract, guess what happens? A blueberry extract in this case. It interrupts the formation of these sticky proteins. And what's missing from that slide, I've lost it, is that same process is stimulated by polyphenols, by curcumin, by green tea, just to name a few. So there are lots of plant nutrients which reduce this glycation, this sticky protein process that happens more as we age. Now, let's come off polyphenols for a minute. Here are 3 different groups of phytonutrients that you find in fruit and vegetables. And this is a list of some of the things that they actually do. We've discussed some of them. They're antioxidant, they reduce DNA damage, they improve cell function, they improve cell detox, they are anti-inflammatory. That's important for aging. They boost immunity, improve circulation. They're involved in gene regulation and mitochondrial health. So it's not surprising then if we look at some of the things that high intakes of fruit and vegetables make a difference to: cancer, heart disease, reducing risk of all of these listed here, age-related macular degeneration, Alzheimer's, diabetes, high blood pressure, aging we're talking about, and osteoporosis. It becomes clear that the way that fruit and vegetables do this is not one mechanism, but it's multiple mechanisms involved in the whole cell regulatory process, activated and modulated by taking in this broad range of phytonutrients on a daily basis. That is not common knowledge to doctors. 9 different ways that cruciferous vegetables can be anti-cancer. Here we go. And it's not just me saying this. Look, this was published in 2015. High consumption of plant-based foods is recommended in dietary guidelines worldwide. Their high intake promotes human health, playing an important role in prevention of chronic disease and aging. I added the aging, by the way, in case you didn't notice. Next, and I'm coming to the close of what I want to say. So, it makes sense, doesn't it? Do I need to say anything else? Why wouldn't you take Juice Plus? Given that that's what these nutrients do. Not just to, what they're doing is so fundamental to basic cell process. Knowing what I know about Juice Plus and the research and what I know about phytonutrition, I would deem it irresponsible for me not to recommend people to take that product. In conjunction with diets high in fruit and vegetables. But truly, this product, folks, is a gift from God to human beings. And I had the fortune to be in Memphis in January at the health practitioners meeting. And I have to say, you know what blew me away most from being there? It was great to meet these other doctors and talk to them about what they were doing and seeing how they were engaged with this product and how their patients had improved and some of the stories they were telling, which I can't share with you, but it was amazing. But you know what blew me away most about being there? It was the attention to the quality of each ingredient that goes into this product. I had not seen it before. I knew it, but when I saw it in the detail that it is, I was stumped by it, honestly. If you know the quality, it's not just the fact that this is phytonutrition, and that's good enough, but it's the quality that goes into every ingredient that goes into this. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And the company deserves every adulation it gets for that. So, it gets in. It's measured in the blood. We know the nutrients get in. The studies show. 11 studies show that it reduces oxidative stress, which is one of the things that causes aging and disease, right? That's what we've established. 11 studies show it reduces that. 3 studies show it influences inflammation markers, which we said contributes to aging and disease. 3 studies show Juice Plus reduces inflammatory markers. And we could go on. The research continues. For sake of time, I still have 5 minutes, but for sake of time, I'm just going to let you absorb that for a sec while I have a little bit more water. That's the other thing that actually blows me away with the company, is that they won't stop doing the research. We've tried to stop them, but they won't. Is that every year there's more and more projects and you'll hear Manfred talk about it next. He's the main guy. Talking about the dedication to new research projects. I would love to see more studies on aging markers. So John and Jay, because if we can show we can change aging markers, we're really showing we can change disease propensity. Absolutely amazing. Blown away by this. What's this one now? Have I just gone backwards? You know why? Because I've got this upside down. That's very clever. Let's go forwards. Onwards. So here's the study on showing the benefits on skin. It was a 12-week study done in Germany. And this was, look at the impact. And this was without the Vineyard blend. But look, increased skin microcirculation by 39%. And also boost skin hydration and skin thickness and skin density in 12 weeks. This is an anti-aging effect, but it shouldn't surprise you based on all the things that I've shared with you already. We're getting these things in that impact on the aging mechanisms. Next. Now, there are published studies which show that each of those things I've listed there actually improves skin. So beta-carotene, which is a carotenoid, lycopene is another carotenoid, astaxanthin, another one, green tea, isothiocyanates, published studies showing that when people take those, they get visible and measurable skin improvements. This is the thing, folks. It ain't one thing. It's the blend. It's the synergy. It's not 1 + 1. When these compounds come together, they are synergistic with each other. So they amplify the effect. And that's why taking them in a form with multiple fruit and veg, as Juice Plus is a wise way to take them. The synergy is critical. And that's what that says too. Most dietary agents modulate multiple cell signaling pathways and thus are multi-targeted naturally. It's not one mechanism. It's multiple mechanisms from multiple phytochemicals working at the same time. Right, quiz. What has this woman had done? It isn't Juice Plus. No, that would be too easy. What? Who said that? Absolutely right. Do you know, the only difference, she's drunk 3 liters of water for 4 weeks. So, we've got to add that into the list, don't we, folks? Hydration, very important. And I'm going to skip through now because I'm running out of time. So, hydration important, essential fats keep the moisture in the skin, so omegas come into play here. They also help the skin to be smooth and softer. Omega-6-3 ratio, not measured, but it's an important anti-aging marker, inflammatory marker. The ratio of omega fats in our system, measured in blood, very important marker for anti-aging physicians to measure, because if you change that favorably, it impacts favorably too. We know that omegas reduce heart disease. Many studies, same thing, significant. And the point I'm making there is that omega-3s, in terms of anti-aging and wellness, have to be put into the equation. They're important to slowing aging. And finally, not quite finally, if you give melatonin to mice, those 2 mice are the same age, but the one on the left has been given melatonin in drinking water. They start to look like and behave like young mice. Another anti-aging trick. Can't say more than that. I've got 19 seconds left. All right, come on. I think I've lost 2 minutes from this clicker. This is just showing you don't need Botox and chemicals and everything. Every picture you see there, before and after, is through natural methods of addressing aging. There is no toxin, no chemical, no surgery. It can be done. You want to know how to do it? You better come and see me. All right. So in conclusion, I think this is my last slide. It is. Anti-aging is disease prevention. There is a need for detecting measurements, these processes that lead to disease, because if we measure those early, we'll age better and we'll prevent disease. Meanwhile, while those are not available through your doctor, it behoves us to lower oxidative stress and inflammation with correct diet and put in plenty of phytochemicals and polyphenols. That's what I've said at the bottom. That means increase fruit and vegetables, take Juice Plus, add some omegas in there, and we'll be on the right track to slowing the aging and disease processes. Both are linked and on the same timeline. I think that's it, folks. Is it? Well, I'll leave that up because it's my prescription for anti-aging. I'm going to leave you with that, folks. My time is up. God bless you for listening. I hope this has been truly empowering.
I've been infected with restless whispers and cheats that manifested.